We'll go ahead and continue. I'm heading back to my slides. You can, again, follow along on my screen or on your own. Either way is fine. Now, with this presentation in particular, I do have a lot of links, and it will be dependent. What you get out of this session will be largely based on the resources that are included. So for a lot of this, you will need to have a copy of the slides open. So moving into choice boards, here's a short video that we're going to look at about what a choice board is, and then we'll come back together and we'll kind of debrief on what we just watched.
Hi, I'm Martine Brown.
And I'm Tyra Clayton.
And today we're going to talk to you about Martine Brown.
And I'm Tyra Clayton.
And today we're going to talk to you about digital choice boards.
Digital choice boards, they allow students to choose an activity or activities that will complete for an assignment or to demonstrate understanding. Digital choice boards, students can choose activities that can be described or hyperlinked. You can consider telling students to complete activities in a row, or you can also have a column. It just depends on your students. Each column or row on digital choice board can be focused on a particular skill or standard.
When we take a look at an example like the one listed, you can organize your choice board into a 9-square model and 3 in a row. Teachers can choose what they want to differentiate. For examples, you can differentiate what students will produce, like this example, where students can produce different types of creations, or how students will engage with different learning styles, which level of complexity students are ready for, or which activities appeals to the students' interests. For a copy of this Show What You Know link or the template, please look in the description box below.
All right, so that was, again, a short video demonstrating one person's view on what a choice board is. I'm offering to everybody, I'm inviting everybody to please unmute if you'd like and just describe what you saw when we watched that overview of choice boards.
So, oops, go ahead.
Okay. I think this is really good for differentiation and allowing students to feel that they have more control over how they learn. Also, it would help me in terms of knowing what level of learning they are at and what they're ready for.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so differentiation is definitely built into the examples that we just saw, being able to have different types of products. And I really want to emphasize that real quick. I used to teach high school English, and we had to write papers, and sometimes we did presentations, and everybody turned in a PowerPoint or slides. And after you look at your 90th one or 120th one, they all look the same, right? So if we allow for this differentiation and this choice when it comes to what is your product, it not only makes it more exciting for our students and they can demonstrate who they are in a more authentic way, but it also makes it more engaging for me trying to provide feedback and assess as well. Thank you for your explanation. Can we hear from 1 or 2 other people?
I really like how this can demonstrate a marriage of the skills that we want students to demonstrate, but also they're pairing that skill with a content area. And especially for a history teacher, this allows me to let kids choose different content areas to different skills that is their choice. It's not something that is prescribed for them. Because oftentimes what I hear from students is, I like learning the skill, but I'm not interested in this topic. So by
Right.
giving them multiple options, that alleviates that.
Absolutely. Again, choice, choice, choice. We'll notice a big uptick in engagement and excitement from our kiddos when they have that ability, that autonomy to make decisions. Thank you. We're going to keep rolling along. And these next few slides, I think you guys will absolutely love. And these are going to have so many examples. But we're all going to start off with a tic-tac-toe board. And this is probably the most common format for a choice board. So let's go ahead and click here on the right-hand side where we see the picture on slide 13. You will need to be in your own copy. So if you need to leave the Zoom or leave my screen share for a second, you can. So when we click on this, again, it's going to offer us to use the template. This is coming from a website called Shake Up Learning. They have many, many fantastic resources. Our next slide will, our next few slides will pull from there. So on here, we have our choice board or choice menu. And we see the directions of start with number 5 and then make 2 other choices to make your tic-tac-toe. So some things that we notice when we encounter this choice board is number 5 is common for everybody. You can't not do it. Now with this one, it says start with number 5. So this might be a common engagement or pre-teaching piece. So maybe we take everybody to a form or take everybody to a Flipgrid page and it becomes, what do you already know about World War II? Or what's your favorite type of book? You know, we might have some sort of framing question that can start to bring forth some ideas in conversations that collectively we can do. I see a question in the chat. I exit full screen on my computer for the Zoom and it's one window, I can see other tabs. That's an awesome idea. Thank you, Lauren. All right, so when we have our choice board, we know that we have this common one in the middle. You can also have that as a common ending point. So maybe it becomes everybody's going to post their learning artifact on this location so that we can give each other feedback. So a couple different framing ways that you can do that if you want that common option. The other thing that I noticed when I look at this, we have 2 colors. Does anyone notice something interesting when it comes to the way these colors are set up? What might it suggest?
I believe what we're looking at is the growth of learning patterns.
Okay. So we have the growth of learning patterns. So with this, can you explain that a little bit more? I'm gonna.
Yeah, so when we in my school use something like this, we create the levels of the skill and the content options so that they grow either going horizontally or vertically. So it would be more difficult if you chose number 3, or the most difficult would probably be number 9.
Okay.
To show exemplar. I think that's what I'm looking at. But
cool. I like, it's kind of a Rorschach test right here, right? Like everybody sees something different. So one thing I notice is because we have to do number 5, there's no way you can complete a tic-tac-toe on this without doing both like that greenish blue and the yellowish color. You have to do one of each. So an idea that has popped up in this session when I've done it before, what if we made all the bluish ones really focused on the content standards that we're doing? And then the yellowish ones, we bring in some of the social, emotional, or soft skills that we definitely, or community based pieces that we want to foster even if we aren't physically with our kids, so that we can really have a mix and a holistic approach to what learning could be. You know, it can definitely also be the blue is about the content that we're engaging with, and the yellow is looking more at what are the artifacts that we're producing. So we really have a multitude of ways that we can go about this. So what we're gonna do for the next little bit, we're gonna just run through how we can adapt this type of learning choice menu. And we'll see some of the skills that might be helpful. So if I wanted to put in box 1, my first option for my kiddos, I might do something like, so this is going to be content that they're doing. So this is my watch video on environment. And with this, I can link to a particular video. So does everybody know? Well, I'm not going to assume everybody does. So I'm going to show you how to link something in Docs and Slides, any of these tools. So if we want to link it, I'm going to double click on it. And then up at the top of our screen, you'll probably see in the menu where it says Insert. When I click on Insert, 2/3 of the way down is an option for link. So with this, the text part is what people will see. Then the link is going to be the website that it takes them to. So I might have a particular YouTube video that I'm going to take them to, or maybe it's my school website, or on the environment, it might be a National Geographic or whatever it might be. All right, so now instead of having this long URL, this long website, I have it cleanly says watch video on environment, and my students would know when I click on environment, it'll take me somewhere.
Adam, the only drawback I found to that is that students that don't have internet capability, if I sent something home like this, they may be able to type in a URL if they go to grandma's house. But they don't have enough time at grandma's house to do everything, so they're going to pick and choose. So having a URL can be helpful for them, and not just have the name there.
That's a good point. Thank you. So what I would encourage you to do, a lot of websites will give you a shortened URL. So YouTube, you can shorten a URL. Google Forms that we saw yesterday, when you go to share, there's a checkbox that says shorten URL, and that makes it from probably 100 characters down to maybe 10 to 20 characters, which would be far easier to manage for our kiddos. You could also try something with QR codes and putting the QR code in here. So a few different ways that we can make it more accessible for our kids. Not every student may have a laptop at home, but at least where I live, majority of our students would have access to a mobile device. So QR codes could be a helpful option for that. Something else that I just learned a couple days ago. So we have our first option in here, watch video on environment. And again, this will be dependent upon having reliable internet access at homes. But if in here we put slides and we go and look for a certain Google slide, like this is one that I'm working on right now, Blended Learning Tool Slides, and apply. This is brand new. So when I click on slides, it shows it right here, and I get this option to open preview, where I'm still in my doc, but I can look through all of my slides and have my resource here on the left, my doc here on the left, and I can go through and experience any of this content that's on my slides directly in line with my material. I saw this just 2 days ago, so I'm very happy you're the first group of people I've shared that with. So when we're all done filling in our choice menu, and we're not going to be able to complete that right now.
Adam?
Yes, Stacy?
Are you aware of Safe Share with YouTube videos?
I know of a few different tools that I'm guessing are similar. Do you want to tell everyone about Safe Share?
Yeah, so Safe Share is a website for Vimeo and YouTube videos, and you can take the link from YouTube, put it into Safe Share, and then they're going to generate a new link for you. So when your students click on that link, none of the other videos that come up in the margin will come up, only that video. So yeah, so you would paste it right there. And you know, because when you click on a YouTube video, it then populates lots of other videos on the side, which allows kids to then get off task, go explore something you might not want them to see. By doing Safe Share, they're only going to that one video you want them to see.
Thank you, Stacy. And that's also by placing a video directly into Google Classroom or directly onto slides or a website that you might have, at least we are not taking kids to YouTube. And what you're saying is I'm completely on board with. We want to find a way where we remove as many distractions and as many potential negative pathways that they could take. So again, whether it's a simple embed, at least you aren't seeing all the advertisements going, or using a tool like SafeShare where you don't even get the suggested videos. Either of those can be really helpful when working with our kiddos. Thank you. So yes, when we are finished with our choice board, we would go to Google Classroom and make that choice of anyone, or not anyone with the link. We would make a copy for each student so that they got their own version. They would be able to submit one artifact, and I would be able to see all of their work from this choice board. All right, so if you want, you can leave this tab open. Again, you will have work time a little bit later. So if you want to return to this, you can. Otherwise, know that it is saved in your Google Drive, so you can come back to it at a later point that way too. All right, so I'm heading back to our slides, and I'd invite you to do the same. What we're moving into now is an opportunity on slides 14, 15, and 16 to look at a lot of different formats of what choice boards can be. Now, keep in mind, there's a reason I started with the tic-tac-toe board. It is the simplest one, and it's a fantastic place to begin. If you're like, this is what I'm looking for, I want to be in the tic-tac-toe board, by all means, that's perfectly fine. Please do that. But I do have a lot of different formats linked on here, from Shake Up Learning that we just used as an example. Slides Mania is a fantastic website. If you've never been there before, I'd encourage you to check this out. Then we go to slide 16. You'll notice that they have a choice board where it's no tech, low tech, high tech, and giving kids options that way. We also have some that are about well-being for learners of all ages. And then on 16, there's a new thing called Bitmoji Classroom that people started putting together back in maybe May or April. And so there's an example of how to do that too. We're going to take 5 minutes to explore. And then when we're done, on slide 17, we'll find our next step where we'll be able to share and kind of debrief on what we just explored. Can I have someone summarize how we're spending our next 5 minutes, please?
We're exploring all these fun tools. Sorry.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
We're exploring all these fun tools.
Brilliant. Okay. And follow your own path, find what works for you. You do have choice right now. And if you have questions along the way or find something amazing, turn your mic on, shout it out, and this is gonna be fun. All right, so go ahead and explore. 10:08, we'll come back together and move on. All right, thank you. I hope you've been finding some good things. We'll take about another minute and we'll come back together and share out on the great resources that you encountered. Okay, so let's come back together. I know that you encountered lots of different things. I hope that you found at least one that you might be able to use in the future. At this point, let's move to slide 17. And on here, we have a link to a Padlet. And Padlet is a great way that even in distance or in choice boards, we can add these in there to be able to have a community aspect. So on slide 17, we're going to click where it says head to our Padlet. And once we get there, we'll notice that there are 3 different prompts here. The first is, what are some things that inspired you or where you had an aha moment and you're like, oh man, I didn't think I could do this. When you're ready to respond, you'll just click that plus sign directly beneath one of these 3 prompts. The next prompt is, what is your favorite template? You know, a lot of people like the Edflix one, or maybe the Fortnite, or, you know, something from Slides Mania, whatever it is, drop it in here so other people can see it. And then finally, we know that we want to serve our students not just academically, but what are some other ways that we can bring these ideas, non-academic ideas, into our choice boards, into our Hyperdocs. And we're going to drop those into the final column. We'll take about 2 or 3 minutes to add ideas in here, and then we'll come back together and we'll share out as well. Okay. So you can definitely continue adding your ideas onto our onto our Padlet, and we will come back to this in a little bit as well. But I would like to hear from 1 or 2 people who would like to verbally share out about something that they encountered as we had that exploring time.
Hi, Adam, it's Dee. I liked them all. I'm an art teacher, so all these are visually appealing for me. So I think just having the opportunities and the options to have, like, I didn't know half of this existed. So I'm pretty excited about what I can bring to my classroom.
Oh, good. Yeah, I had the best time finding these resources, and like there were a few week period, and I still add to it, or like they just seem to be finding me. I'm like, oh, I get to share it with more people. I loved it. Thank you, Dee. Let's hear from 1 or 2 other people.
Well, I just really like the classroom with the Bitmoji. I can't wait to assemble that.
Oh, good. And please keep in mind that on slide 16, there is a tutorial video where you can watch that.
I was looking at that.
Oh, good.
I was listening to her, and yeah, I've been excited to try that out.
Oh, cool. I can't wait for you to introduce that to your kiddos.
I know, they'll make them too. They will make them also.
Oh, cool. All right. Maybe one more person who'd like to share out?
I love this Padlet thing that we're doing right now, actually. From what I can see, it's a low risk way for students to jump in and share their ideas without having their name attached.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a hard time finding programs that allow me to do that. So this is actually kind of cool. I want to check out Padlet some more.
Good. Yeah, I love Padlet. It's definitely a favorite tool of mine. And it's awesome because students don't need to have an account to be able to use it. So we don't have to worry about the privacy and security pieces with that. And it is really a low stakes way of being able to hear every voice and offer some levels of equity of voice as well. Looks like we have one idea in the chat. I want to make sure I get to that. Okay, can I explain Edflix a little? Yeah, let me bounce back to Edflix and look through this, okay? So this comes from a new favorite educator of mine who I saw speak back in February, right before our world drastically changed. This is from John Meehan, an educator in the DC area. And so what he has, this is more looking at choice boards in terms of how our students are interacting with content. So it's not necessarily the artifact and demonstration as much. So with this, we could have, we'll skip slide 2 and get into, well, now we have these different topics, right? So in here, if my first unit is on the 13 original colonies, and I have that, then the next one might be on like the Louisiana Purchase time period. And then I get into having materials that are focused on Civil War era. And I can start to put in resources that are tagged to that. And so here's my playlist of instruction. I'm gonna start with this first article or this first video. When I click on it, it takes me to learn more about it. And I can be able to put links in here or put videos in here that allow me to bring my students to the content that I want them to find. Now we can also do it where our students are curating and they're putting together maybe a study list when it comes to Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, so that at the end of the year, when they need to prepare for an exam, they can go back and just watch these videos and have that playlist in there too. So a few different ways that we can adapt it to be able to use it for our kiddos. And I love the idea of binge learning, and that's part of his title there. All right, any final questions about these choice board ideas?
Adam, I'm just curious. This occurred to me way back when we were looking at the tic-tac-toe one. So a student is engaging in tic-tac-toe, and they're going to do, of course, the center one, and then one of either, you know, like they're going to do these 3 items. Now, are these Hyperdocs set up in such a way that like the student clicks on the square, completes the activity, and then their work is submitted back to us? Or is it, is it all coming in 3 different ways, or is it all organized? What are your thoughts on that? Or is that coming out?
My thoughts on it, if I'm back in the tic-tac-toe board and my student does a Kahoot, or they do, they draw a picture and they do sketch notes on a concept, they can either take a picture of a physical artifact. So if they go to insert image and camera, then they can take a picture of something that they've physically made or drawn or written or whatever it might be, and we can add it in there. They can do screenshots of different results. So if they are doing a practice test or game, then they can take a picture of that final card to represent their mastery. And that's kind of the beauty. I would collect all of them, have my students either link or capture them somehow on their choice menu, and then submit so that they're only submitting one resource that would collect all 3 of their choices.
So in essence, what's happening is like the tic-tac-toe, they're making a copy of what it is you're what you've given them, and then they're sending back their copy of that with all of their stuff on it. That's the way that it's easiest to organize it.
Yep, and we would use the make a copy for each student option in Classroom to be able to help facilitate that. Looks like we have some chat questions too. Adam, how do students submit this work back to us? Thanks. So we can do that within Google Classroom. When they get a template like the one we have here, there's going to be a blue button in the top right-hand corner of their screen, their Google Docs screen, that says, I think turn in, but it might say submit. But regardless, it makes it very easy for them to turn it into their teacher, to turn it into you. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to head back to our slides and we're going to make our transition. We're going to transition to our Hyperdocs. And let's go ahead. We're not going to watch the video for this one, but I do want to take you all to slide 20, where we can see some examples of these. Okay, so, and that's perfectly fine. You will get I got a message, Randy, you will get an email with the videos in there. All right, so my favorite templates are available here, and I bring this up because as we mentioned at the very beginning of our session, Hyperdocs are largely based upon pre-existing lesson plan templates. And, you know, we are shifting to learning plans, but the terms that Hyperdocs uses are lesson plans. We'll borrow that a little bit. I'd like everybody to click where it says the image right above Explore, Explain, Apply, and we're going to go ahead and look at our first Hyperdoc together. When we go there, as we've seen before, it's going to ask us to use a template and, you know, hit that blue button and it'll add this to your drive. And I wanted to start with this one because it is just a 3-step process, similar to when we began with choice boards. We started with the simplest one, and we're going to also do that here. And in just a moment, mine is opening up. It is taking a little bit longer than usual. So in here, we can see this lesson plan format that our students are exploring some type of content in this column, in this cell where it says insert links, images, videos, or articles to independently build background knowledge for a topic. So I can put multiple things in here. It might be a good idea to put different formats of material. So I can have a podcast linked here. I can have an article. I can have a video, an image that all represent the same idea, so that our students one student may need to look at all 4 resources. Another student might look at 2, and they still have the same outcome. And that's really what we're trying to build for our students, giving them the choice with how they interact with the content. Then on the right-hand side, we tell them what they're doing, what's their output. So they can respond to guiding questions, they can take notes, whatever it is, and post them in here. And you have that choice. They have that, they may have choice with what their task is. Then we move into the next phase of the learning plan. And this one is explain. So we want them to be able to explain the content on their own. So they're building upon past experiences. How are they going to process? Is it going to be something done digitally or on paper? Remember, if it's on paper, they can always go to insert, image, and then from camera to be able to capture what it is that they physically have done, or they can take a picture with their phone, would be another option. Then finally, they get into an apply part. And, you know, with each of these, we can give them choices. It can all be a common thing. It's really up to you. Now, with all of these, I can change the picture. I can change the title, customize things for me, change what font this might be, or the background color. All of those things are adaptable for me. And like we did before, when I'm all done, I'm going to go to Google Classroom, make an assignment, and set it up as make a copy for each student. Now, I also want you to think, as we look at these Hyperdocs, and also as we look at the choice boards, how can you bring community into them? With our slides today, I've chosen to use Padlet. I could have used Flipgrid, I could have used discussion boards, lots of different things, but again, we use Padlet. I'm gonna quickly pause and see what questions you have about Hyperdocs from this first example. Okay, cool. So at this point, I'm gonna head back to our slides, and we're gonna look at 2 other templates that they've put together. I'll let you know that this one in the middle, Hero's Journey, is the one that I use the most. And so you can see in here, I've used them for professional development a fair amount. And if you look at my go-to template, personalized learning, these are examples that I've used again, in professional development. At the beginning, I kind of ground people with what direction we're going. Then for the personalized learning one where it's red, I gave people a non-digital opportunity. So with this, they were sorting strips of paper that were in an envelope. And so we really can bring in both digital and tangible experiences for our kiddos. I also told them that they could work in any order. So they do have choice about finding the areas of interest or finding the areas where they need to grow if we build that part in. So I made sure not to number these and try to suggest that they needed to go in a sequential order. As we go through here, you can see that I gave different options in here, lots of different links. And then I wanted to give places for my, my teachers who I was supporting. I wanted them to have time to reflect as we went. So in all of these different areas, I gave them places to do notes, or I might give a guided question for them. And we repeat that again and again. And then at the very end, you know, we started with it being do something physical with the sorting activity where it's tactile. And then we moved to the very end where we had that common location to be able to share out and reflect upon our learning experience using a Padlet wall. And then finally, the last format that we're going to look at in this time right now is the Hyperdoc format. So they synthesized, the 3 people, the 3 educators behind Hyperdocs synthesized by looking at several different formats of lesson plans and put them and decided, you know, a lot of them carry a lot of the same terms or ideas. So let's put them together. And so often when I'm planning professional development, I start with the 5E format, which is engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and the final one that I'm not thinking about right now. Sorry. But within here, extend or evaluate, I think is the one that I was looking for, but then you can add the 6E of extend. Good call. So in here, we see that this follows the same thing and it gives our students a task or the next step every move along the way. I like that this one also has share and reflect, that we're building those pieces in there. And again, you can adapt. Maybe you don't want to include all of these steps along the way, or you want to repeat something, you certainly can. This is a completely adaptable resource for you. All right, so we've seen 3 different templates. On our next slide, slide 21, we have a couple other things that I'm going to direct you to. The first, let's all click where it says templates, please. And this takes you to Hyperdocs website. And in here, on the template page, you'll notice that on the left-hand side, we have a template. On the right-hand side, it gives us a sample. We've already looked at the basic Hyperdoc lesson. We've already looked at explore, explain, apply. But if we wanted to check out a new one, we might click where it says template 5Es. And if this is one that you eventually would want, we're able to go up to where it says file, make a copy, and we can choose to put this into our own Google Drive so that we can come back to it in the future. If we head back to our slides real quick, we also have a link on there on slide 21 for lessons. When we click on lessons, instead of finding templates where we can go and kind of construct our own, we find a ton of lesson plans that are already built. So I can go and search by subject. If I want to go to science, I'm going to go there. Or I can find a theme like community building. But for me, I'm going to go to science. And in here is a folder made up of probably, I'm guessing, hundreds of different Hyperdocs that other educators have put in here for free. Now, when we get into these different folders, something I'd like you to do, right now, my Google Drive is set up as list view, so I'm only seeing the name. But if I go up towards the top right, you might see a 3x2 grid. And if I click on that, it's going to switch to allow me to have the preview mode and be able to see what each of these looks like. So if I needed to do, if I have an upcoming lesson or unit on life cycle, I might go through, find one on life cycle, and I can make a copy, adjust the content to meet my students' needs or my own preferences for materials, and then I could share it using Classroom. So what we're going to do, we'll take, again, about 3 minutes for you to explore the different templates or the different lessons and see if there's something that you particularly like as we're exploring those. Sound good? All right, so let's go ahead. It's 10:28. At 10:32, we'll come back together. And as always, if you run into a question, please unmute your mic or drop it into the chat, and I'll be happy to help you.
Adam, did you say to click on templates or lessons?
You can do either, whichever way you'd like to direct your own learning right now.
So when I clicked on templates, I wasn't seeing the images that you were showing. So I was wondering.
So on the template page,
yeah,
it says
okay.
Hyperdoc template for getting started, right? in here on the left-hand side, I know they don't have the visual thumbnail beneath the name. They have like a different placeholder, but if you click on either the hyperlinked text, or if you click on the image that says template basic Hyperdoc lesson, either of those would open up and allow you to make your own copy of the resource.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. We'll take another minute or so and then come back together and kind of repeat what we did with the choice boards where we can reflect on the Padlet. So as we wrap up looking at these different experiences, I'd like you all to head back to our Padlet. You might still have that tab open at the top of your screen. If not, it will be linked on slide 22. And we got a question in the chat that I think is really important. So in either the choice board or in the Hyperdoc format, either of those ways, we would want to post these to our students as an assignment where we make a copy of the resource for each student. Our student would do their work from within Google Docs or Slides or whatever template or format you're using. They would do that work, add their links or artifacts of their learning, and then they would hit turn in, or they would submit that assignment back to you where you'd be able to give them feedback. Now keep in mind that as soon as the student gets their own copy of the assignment, you can start going in and monitoring and giving feedback along the way. You don't need to wait until they hit submit, but it will really be as obvious for them as a button in the top right of their Google Doc or a button in the top of their slides that says turn in. All right, so let's make sure that we're heading back into our Padlet. Remember, it is linked on slide 22, and we're going to reply again to those 3 headings of what were your inspirations, what were your favorite templates, and then finally non-academic ideas of how you might be able to bring into a Hyperdoc. Okay, so as you kind of wrap up with writing your responses in here, there are a couple that I definitely want to highlight, and then again, we'll have time to reflect and share out verbally. I like this one. Love that there are so many templates and lessons to use, makes life easier. It's kind of a risk reward when it comes to sharing a lot of examples for people, right? We can get overwhelmed and experience paralysis by the number of things that are already out there, and while I'm not comfortable with making these amazing visuals by myself, that's why I like to make sure I take people to the template, and I like to make sure that I take people to the ones that have already been made. Start with those. Don't start by trying to jump all the way to a Bitmoji classroom or all the way to a Fortnite game board, right? We want to start with what's appropriate for ourselves. For some of us, it might be, I'm going to start by making my own choice board, but instead of 9 choices, I'm going to give them 3. And that's cool, right? That's moving beyond maybe what we used to do. So find what is that appropriate entry point for you and really find success initially and then broaden from there. Would anyone else like to reflect and share out for the group? So I'm not going to take that it's silent right now to mean that we don't have ideas to share, because obviously from your post here, we have found some excitement around what we can do next. So I think that that's kind of the big takeaway, that there are plenty of things to explore that we can begin to implement. I'm going to head back to our slides at this point. So let's bounce back. And you know, we've touched on this a couple times as we've gone, but really encouraging people to continue to think about what community can look like as you go back, as you start working with your class, and how can we make it where it's not just a static, individualistic learning experience for our kids, because we definitely don't want to take learning back to that. So some ideas like we've used today, we can use Padlet. If you've never used Flipgrid, it's an awesome tool where kids can respond to a prompt and record a video and share it with their classmates, or just share it with you as a teacher. We can also do something like shared notes and slides. And when we click on that option, here is one way that when I'm working with a cohort of people again and again, or even in a one-off professional development, sometimes I give everybody a collaborative slide and I say, pick one and introduce us to you. And we can bring that in here. Or if we do that same type of idea where this is a slide file where everybody with the link can edit, instead of having it where everybody does a slide about themselves, I could put a concept at the top of each of these slides, and then everybody collectively builds out resources or adds questions that they have about that topic. So we can use these use slides as a pretty community focused resource as well. Looks like a couple questions in here. Students love Flipgrid, using Symbaloo to be able to start organizing different links and resources for our kiddos. I love that. If if you're using Classroom, or if your district is using another learning management system, maybe Canvas or Schoology or Blackboard, you can also use discussion posts there, where we can put a prompt and maybe do a link to it as one of our choice board options, or it might be part of our lesson or learning plan for a Hyperdoc, and it takes us to that discussion post where I can engage with the other learners in my class that way too. So lots of ways that we can build this in. Are there any others that some of you are using that you'd like to quickly share about? Okay, so I know that there are probably other ways that you use it. We'll keep rolling. All right, so as we get into wrap up, I do want to reiterate, please keep it simple. Start with what's appropriate to you. If that means that you're going to the Hyperdocs sample lessons and you're just finding one and then putting it directly into Google Classroom after you review it, of course, then that's fine, right? Like, we're trying to start off with an area that makes sense for you. If you have had some more experience with choice boards or Hyperdocs and you want to try something a little bit more ambitious, then remember, we still want to focus our attention on what are the learning outcomes, not how cool can I design something. So really trying to structure our materials in a way that best serve learning. And if we can make it aesthetically interesting too for our students, we might increase some engagement, but we want to really hone in on what are those learning outcomes that we desire. So we have a little bit of time right now where, if you would like, we can spend about 10 minutes where you can work and have some help along the way. So the two easiest entry points that I can see are the Explore, Explain, Apply Hyperdoc, or the Tic-Tac-Toe choice board. Or, some of you might have been inspired by something else and you want to go back and continue working on one of these other ideas. I know it says 10 minutes. How about is 5 minutes a good entry point that we'll have this supported time? Cool. Sure. Love it. Okay. So we'll take 5 minutes. And as always, if you have questions, please unmute. And love to hear you, or put it in the chat and we'll be able to respond that way too. That's a really good point. Joanne put today's lesson can be a whole day or even more to learn, explore, and plan. That's completely true. So when you are making a choice board, a hyperdoc, it could be one part of a single day lesson. It can be a whole day. I've seen some people where it's an entire unit. So really think about the scale. And that goes back to that planning resource that we saw towards the beginning of our time. And it said, what is the length of time that you're budgeting for this? So, you know, that can impact our decisions, our choices about what type of artifact we're looking for. Great point there. Okay, so good question from Sarah too. Do you think it is important to have consistency in terms of types of choice boards and hyperdocs? Could it be overload? So I think my bigger concern with that would be, yes, if you can have consistency within a team, then that would be, that'd be fantastic. I think the bigger thing would be if you can somehow find consistency with the types of tools that you're using or expecting the kids to use, so that you're not, like if each teacher selects 5 different accounts that a student needs to make, and they have to be fluent with all these different tools, then I see that as a bigger problem than if one teacher picks the explore, explain, apply, and another teacher picks the tic-tac-toe. Something else that can be helpful, I know a couple days ago we looked at Screencastify for giving feedback. If you are using some of these templates that are, one thing that you could do is record yourself giving the directions and going over the assignment, the expectation with your students using Screencastify, and either embed that video into your slides or put the link into the document so that your kids have your face and your screen as you go through how to engage with this activity. And I think that type of intervention, Sarah, it's really hitting UDL as well. It would be helpful for all learners, could help resolve some of those issues.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we'll take another minute or so to continue to try things out, start to create, and then we'll come back. We'll come back together at that point. Okay, so I want to thank you guys for spending the time with me today. I mentioned before that there were a couple of reflection questions that I'd like to just quickly talk through. I used to work at a summer camp, and one of the cool things that we did at the end of each session was let people share out and say what impacted them. Again, I've worked with an educator who, whenever she goes to a conference, she challenges people to think of what is their one new thing that they plan to do. So kind of a different spin on that same concept of what was the impact for you. But I'm going to invite as many people as who would like to share to do so about what is something that you are excited to use with your students when you go back, whatever that looks like in this coming school year. So we'll really take the time to whoever would like to share on this. And if you'd like to skip ahead and you don't want to participate in that, you're perfectly welcome to move on to the feedback form that's at the end of our slides. But I think there's really an important piece of having a community, being able to see and hear each other share out on that type of question. So who would be open to responding and sharing out on what you plan to use with your kiddos?
I'm going to start with tic-tac-toe, Flipgrid, and Padlet. EdFlex is my ultimate goal. I think that's a little bit reaching for me, but hopefully by November-ish, I should be comfortable with everything else and be able to get there.
Awesome. Thank you, Alyssa.
I'd say I'm looking forward to, I work with teachers more, but sharing these resources with teachers. And I think I had a surface level understanding, but I think you've provided much more depth that I can convey to teachers. So thanks.
Thank you, Sarah.
I like the way that I've learned how to organize my Google Classroom a lot better, especially with my due dates. And I think I'm going to use the Hyperdoc to help organize my units over a longer period of time than just as homework. That was an aha moment for me. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, you're welcome. And I also like how, when we combine Hyperdocs with Classroom, we can really clean up the number of things that we're pushing to our students. And now I can push a single document with all of my resources. And, it could be a day, it could be an entire unit, but I'm just giving them one thing instead of a different post for every link that I might have done in the past. Anyone else want to share?
I really liked the 5-step to creating a Hyperdoc. I thought that document was very helpful. That'll help me going forward in creating that and organizing my class. And I also really love the Padlet. No more sticky notes. This replaces sticky notes. So that was a happy moment. Thank you.
I love sticky notes. I don't want to be the death of sticky notes for you, but maybe it's a balance, right? We can do both. Thank you. Anyone else want to share?
So I'm a district administrator, and I'm thinking about ways we can use some of these tools both in person and perhaps in a remote way. So in that blended learning model, so a lot of these have potential for that. So I want to narrow it down to what might be the most usable for our teachers and accessible for our students. So thank you for sort of exciting some of the opportunity.
Absolutely, Gwen. And like I said a couple slides back, keep it simple. Whether that means we could have done something elaborate, we chose to do Padlet. It's very simple, no accounts needed or anything like that. We could have required everybody to start building their own Bitmoji classroom. That wouldn't serve us, right? So we want to find something that is a good entry point for you and a good, appropriate way for you to serve your students too. Cool. It looks like we have a couple ideas in the chat too. Use it with my students in the library, 5th and 6th graders, to help keep them engaged. I'd love that. Just having resources we can go back to and making lessons and learning more dynamic. Thank you guys for those contributions as well. So at this point, go ahead.
I was just going to say there was so much, there is so much there, and I appreciate that you are sending us the video so that later I can absorb more and know which way I want to start, which way I want to go. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Absolutely. And Joanne putting excited to be able to share with my colleagues, and that was kind of our charge at the beginning of every lesson, right? Was how can I not just contain it for myself, but be able to put it out there for other people too. So thank you for adopting that agreement that we've been talking about every day. All right, so at this point, I am gonna flip back to our slides and move into our real wrap up for the week. As I mentioned before, you can reach out to me, adamseipel@gmail.com. Again, every day, several of you have been emailing me. That's been great. Hearing the different ways that you're trying to put these into practice already. You can also go to my website, bit.ly/Adam Seipel. I have all of my session resources in there. There's also information about, further contacting and working alongside me, so you can check that out. On slide 30, we had the link for feedback. It's been the same week all week, same link all week. So you may already have that listed, but it is bit.ly/3GRGLLN. The G, L, and L all need to be capitalized. I'll also put that link into the chat. We do have that additional question of what are some other topics that you would like for professional learning. And Lauren is going to take that information and, continue to plan sessions and experiences for you to help support you. Thank you guys so much for inviting me to work alongside you this week and giving me the opportunity to meet each and every one of you, even if it's been from several hundred miles away. I've really enjoyed this time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. This has been great.
Oh, good.
Thank you all. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Adam.
You're welcome, Sharon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Good, good, good.
Thank you, Adam.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Adam, are you available to help me try to figure out the form issue I was having?
I can for a few minutes, and then
Okay.
I
think I'm probably just doing one thing very quickly wrong. I tried to put in the code, and it's still just generating whether or not that box says yes or has anything checked.
Okay. Do you want to, I'll stop sharing my screen if you want to take over. And
Sure.
Oh, I am not sharing my screen, so you can go ahead and take over and let me see what you're looking at.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I know it's kind of beyond the basic forms here, but okay, so I have, when I'm doing my add-on, I tried the one you suggested.
Mm-hmm.